beloved Ivy Baker Priest, the Treasurer of the United States.
Thank you very much, ladies. And thank you, Miss Adkins, for that very fine introduction. Miss Hayes, distinguished guests, distinguished ladies from the 48 states and the territories. Seem a little close to this. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to meet with you. I haven't had much of an opportunity during this conference to meet with you, and of course I am the loser. I had hoped to be able to see so many of you while you were here, and it seems that you're very busy and I have been very busy, and I guess I will just have to wait until you get into that campaign in your state, and if I can help, of course, I'll be very happy to be there and do my little bit too. I want today to express, is this too much?
1 minute.
Thank you.
Try. That's not Ivy's bones, that's a microphone. Now try.
I don't know, that little list is going to be in there just the same. Can't seem to do much about it. If I get, no, doesn't work. There's a lisp in there you'll have to take this time. We can call it a cold if you want to, although I don't have one. Since I'm up here today, ladies, as your toast mistress, I really want to express for you our appreciation to Miss Adkins for the magnificent job she's doing as Director of the Women's Division. You know and I know of the untold hours she's giving in this cause. You and I know of the speeches she's making, the miles she has traveled, the work she's doing to give inspiration and guidance and help in the various states. And this conference, I think, Bertha, is a tribute to you today. I think it's magnificent to have so many women from all of the states here to be briefed, to get first-hand information about this administration so that when you go back into your states, you of course can really take a message of inspiration back to your workers. Now, since they print all these things so much finer than they used to, oh, there's many things we have to get used to. I just want to leave about one or two thoughts with you. Your national committee has given a resume of the accomplishments of this administration. I know that you've heard speeches, and some very fine speeches, the last few days, and so I know that you're certainly well fortified with campaign material. But your national committee has prepared and briefed the accomplishments of this administration. And I took them today just to leave with you, and I hope that you will get this brief analysis of the accomplishments of this administration, to have it with you, to use wherever you're meeting. And so, with just a minute to give them to you, we can start, first of all, by saying, in the field of government, this administration has given constitutional government to replace dictatorial action. Just a few words, but it says everything. In national economy, peacetime prosperity has replaced war inflation. In national defense, instant readiness has replaced unpreparedness. In foreign affairs, the conference table has replaced the battlefield. For the veterans, peace has replaced war. In my department, Treasury, the tax cuts have replaced continually increased taxes. In the field of public welfare, proper aid has replaced increasing intervention. In the fields of labor, Fairness has replaced misguided favoritism. And in the fields of natural resources and water development, partnership has replaced paternalism. And in the fields of civil rights, performance has replaced preachment. I just brought these today, ladies, because since Miss Hayes has to get a train this afternoon, I have to get one. And since I don't like to speed too much, although this time I will not be driving a car, I guess probably some of you read about that little incident last June that happened when I was overly anxious to get home, and I was driving, and I forgot to pay attention to the road signs. And of course, but what many of you haven't heard is the story that happened after the officer took me to see the judge. It was in a little town, and the judge was holding court in the firehouse. And of course, when I put up, he asked for my driver's license, and I thought, oh, that name, Ivy Baker Priest, won't mean anything. I'll just quietly put it up there and get out of here as soon as I can. But I underestimated that smart judge. He looked at me and he said, "Say, are you that lady that signs all our money?" Well, I meekly admitted that I was. And he turned to the boys in the firehouse and he says, "Boys, we've sure hit the jackpot today." So I'm going to watch my speeding from here on out. And now I'd like to present the guests at the head table today.
Mrs. Priest, distinguished guests, and ladies of the Republican Party. I am here today to represent church women, and whether they like it or not, all church women in the United States are this afternoon Republicans. The church women across America, active in church organizations, are as interested as any other citizens in the great and moving problem of today's world. We share with each of you a deep concern over the rising incidence of unchristian and undemocratic attitudes, undisciplined community actions, as well as all other social and civic problems. There is no doubt that it is the duty of each individual citizen to be deeply interested in these matters and to seek to find basic solutions for them. Solutions which will be at the same time Christian, cooperative, and lasting. As lay women active in church work, we are interested in finding the solutions, but we are also greatly concerned about the basic philosophy behind the solution, the framework in which these solutions are engendered. It is a source of great comfort to church women to know that in seeking the answers to our many and important problems, we are not losing sight of the fundamental Christian principles of morality, decency, and right. In fact, we are greatly uplifted, as we know you are, to have at the helm of our government President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a man who has remembered well that the solutions of the complex problems of today are and must continue to be founded upon Christian humility and self-discipline. Mr. Eisenhower has brought ever-widening overtones of spiritual values to his office and thus to us, his people. As mothers, wives, citizens, and Christian workers, we, the church women of America, feel a deep sense of satisfaction in placing our political, social, and civic future in the hands of this beloved leader, Dwight D. Eisenhower, who has had the courage to mix bold decisions with humble Christianity. May he continue to be divinely guided, and may his courageous boldness and Christian humility lead him and us into glorious victory in 1956.
May I say, if I may be permitted to interject a tiny, very tiny bit of partisan politics, that the Democrats could never put on a show like this. Now, I am very happy to have, as a very distinguished constituent, the lady who is going to make the closing address at this great meeting. And I think, first of all, that you are all very, very fortunate that she was able to come to you. And next, I think nothing could be more appropriate than that she should address you, because she is one of the few women in our country who belong to the whole country. Thanks to circumstances over which I am sure she will agree she had no control, she was born in this great capital of Washington, D.C. And as you know, Washington still is your capital, whether you come from Alaska, California, or New York. It's your capital. And so from her very birth, this lady belonged to the United States. There's been some talk during these meetings, last night and even today, about years and age. And I know you will all be very flabbergasted to know that it was a matter of record that this lady celebrated 50 years of her great career as Queen of the American Theater not very long ago. But it really is not as remarkable as it sounds, because I am informed on very reliable authority that she started in very, very much younger than most of us start, certainly than any politician starts on a political career. We have a great speaker here, but I would like to say that she is even more than that. We have here also a great actress, but she is more than that. She is a great human being. She has never allowed anything to interfere with her home life, and that to a woman is always the most important thing in the world. She has been a successful homemaker. She has been through trouble and through sorrow, and yet she has never allowed it to sour her or get her down, because she has the spiritual strength that alone can make us triumph over these things. And so, without more ado, because one cannot gild the lily, I want to give you now the First Lady of the American stage, the First Lady of Rockland County, and after you have seen and heard her, one of the First Ladies in your hearts, Miss Helen Hayes.
Nothing could be pleasanter than to be able to sit here in my own hometown and hear those beautiful things that were said about me by our great Vice President, that most attractive and wonderful and honest and good Dick Nixon. And I hope you realize and can, in a small way, share with me the thrill that I felt there, and I hope you also
won't share with me the panic that seized me when he began to build me up too high as a speaker. I would have enjoyed the whole thing so much more if I could have just slipped out behind him there. However, I hope I'm not going to be the first person who has ever been able to make a liar out of Dick Nixon. Also, I'm very grateful that Mrs. St. George, of whom our district is inordinately proud, was chosen to introduce me. I'll be very happy to go back to Nyack tomorrow and boast around Main Street. I had a little preamble here to my remarks that I had contrived before that blessed day, February 29th. As you know, I've called my little address to you Hour of Decision. I think I was expressing a little bit of anxiety in that first page or two, so I've just thrown it away since February 29th because we have no longer any overwhelming and terrible decisions to make in our hearts about who will be our next president. The answer, of course, came on that beautiful day, the answer for which we can solemnly thank our God, Dwight David Eisenhower. I'm putting these on so that Mrs. Priest won't feel too badly. So she won't be the only one to do it. Well, to throw away those first pages, yes, I did say a little prayer of thanks to my God on February 29th that President Eisenhower had made his decision in our favor and in favor of our country. I don't use that word prayer lightly either, any more than our president does. Do you remember what he said when he was leaving for that historic meeting in Geneva? And he spoke to us from his heart, and he said, "Within a matter of minutes, I shall leave the United States on a trip that in some respects is unprecedented for a president of the United States. For the first time, a president goes to engage in a conference with heads of other governments in order to prevent war. The people of all the world desire peace, not a peace of the mere stilling of guns, but a peace in which they can live happily, tranquilly, and in confidence. That they can raise their children in a world of which they will be proud. I have no doubt that tonight, throughout this country, and indeed throughout the free world, such prayers are ascending, and this is a mighty force." Thus spoke our president. But unfortunately, there are other forces abroad in the world, forces of hate, of despotism, of ruthless ambition, of inherited and educated prejudice. There is greed and fear and hunger. There is communism, that false promise that entices with freedom and rewards with slavery. So what weapons have we to defeat these forces of evil? We have many. We have the most vital, flexible, and satisfying form of government that has ever been created by man. We have religious tolerance, and we're working toward racial tolerance. Please God. We have fantastic physical resources and productive power, and we have both inventive and creative ingenuity, and we have faith. We have faith in our country, in its people, and in ourselves. And with all this, we have an enormous sense of responsibility, we women particularly, because we women claimed the right to share in the responsibility of electing those who were to run the machinery of government. We claimed it, and we fought for it, and we won it. And now we are determined to accept our continuing responsibility as contributive citizens. But really, how complex our lives have become, haven't they? In these few short years since we got the vote, we've entered in the competitive fields of business and science and medicine and politics and aviation. We're in factories and machine shops and the cabinet and laboratories and military uniforms, while continuing to bear children and market and cook and clean and love our husbands. Well, yes, we've learned to do, all that do-it-yourself business. We hang our own wallpaper, and we lay tile floors, and we upholster a couch, and we even help to build the very house we live in. We help maintain the hospitals and the charities for those who need them. And while doing all this, we find time to have our hair done and keep our nails manicured. I'm not so good at that, are you? But anyway, we wear pretty clothes. And we cast 52% of the votes in the election that made Mr. Eisenhower our president. Well, I don't guess any of us are in doubt of why we voted that way. I'm not. I think I know. We like stability. We were willing to gamble against great odds to achieve it. As pioneer women, we walked thousands of dusty miles behind the covered wagons rumbling westward. But when we got where we were going, we set up homes and demanded schools and churches, and we saw to it that law enforcement was established in those raw new communities. In 1952, we wanted stability in our government, and we got it. We want it again in 1956. We like financial security. We can face poverty with courage, but we don't like it. We'll make a dress out of flour sacking, and we'll fix beans 6 different ways for 6 different meals in order to save money to pay our debts. But we expect our government to do the same thing. We like $1 to buy $1's worth of goods. We want taxes to be the income of government and not a weapon against its citizens. In 1952, we wanted financial security in and from government, and we got it. We want it again in 1956. We like integrity. We use the same grocer year after year because he gives us good service at fair prices and because he can always be depended on in emergencies. We seek out and bind ourselves to the doctor whose high dedication to duty and whose technical ability make him the man that we trust. We demand integrity in our friends, and we require it in our government. We got it in 1952, and we want it again in 1950. We like justice. We know that each member of a family must be given the same amount of love, of food, and of care. We need the grandparents, the parents, and the children to be well and strong and happy in order to have a warm and complete family unit. We've learned to restrain the child who has a tendency to be spoiled, who wants the biggest piece of cake, who likes to occupy the center of the stage. We willingly give service and extra care to the member of the family who isn't well. So in our national family, we expect the same attitude and appreciation for labor, the farmers, and for management. We want a just and fair government in 1956, just as we wanted it and got it in 1952. We want peace. Oh, how much we want it. And we know that all over the world, women's hearts reach out to each other with that same yearning. It transcends the barriers of language and space. It cuts through races and mountains. For each of us who has held a baby in her arms, who has hung fresh curtains in the kitchen windows, who has worked with devotion at her job, be it at the typewriter, at the microscope, or at the stove. For each of us who closes the door at night around her family and friends, each of us has known the same clutching fear that this serenity and safety may not last. We've seen the ugly face of war in the wounded, the shattered, and the lonely. We never see the false glory that some men claim for it. We know the terror that war leaves in children's eyes, the barren devastation of cities with their beautiful churches and hospitals just piles of rubble, and the dreams of countless people buried at the bottom. We count war as the last and most desperate weapon that can be used only against the vilest and most aggressive forces of evil. We demand of our government that it make us so strong that no one will dare attack us, that it be so wise that we shall circumvent the pressures of evil, that it will be so good that we are respected by our government, and that we and all other peoples in the world shall respect it. Enrolled Republicans, partyless independents, and Democrats for Eisenhower demanded that kind of government in 1952. We must have that kind of government in 1956. To get it, I know we're all willing, every one of us, to talk and work, to enroll, and to vote for Eisenhower. Because, as the stalwart Old Testament prophet Isaiah said, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings and publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good and publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Hayes, for that very inspiring and magnificent talk.